everyone, Alexa Donne here, and today I am going to be talking all about queries. So query letters are pitches that you write to literary agents to catch their attention and get them to read your book, and I'm going over it all. My best tips for writing them, best practices for query etiquette, all of it. So as I already mentioned, a query is a short pitch for your book to grab an agent's attention. Specifically, it's going to be about a page, 250 words or less. You're keeping it concise, and it's mostly about the book. You are setting up your main character, what they want, what is standing in their way, and what happens if they don't get it. Essentially, character, conflict, and stakes. Those are going to be the main ingredients of your query, with a teeny tiny bit that's an overview of the book and where it's going to fit in the market, and a teeny tiny paragraph about you as the author. This isn't the time to write your autobiography or go on and on about why you wrote this book. It's all about the book. So character, conflict, and stakes is my absolute favorite query formula, so to speak. I think the best queries are character-based queries because the point of a query is to make an agent care about your book. And so often, why do we read books? Because we care about the characters. You don't want to be info dumping in your query about the plot. It's not just about X, Y, Z happens in this book. It's about the soul of the book, who the reader is going to follow, and why they care that all of this crazy stuff is happening to them. Also, along the lines of it not being a plot summary, you're not going to be spoiling the entire book. You're giving them just a taste of the book, up to the inciting incident, or at max up to that midpoint turn. I also like to encourage people to think of it like back cover copy. So take any one of your favorite books and you open up the front flap on most hardcovers. On paperbacks, it's going to be on the back, and this is the back cover copy, or the blurb. And this copy is always character-based copy that gives the reader a taste of what their reading experience is going to be. It's the main character, it's what they want, it's what's standing in their way, and what they lose if they don't get it, aka character, conflict, and stakes. Think about this pithy marketing copy, because that is always what back cover copy is. It's meant to entice the reader, and the agent is the reader in this case. So I personally find that having writers read a ton of back cover copy is the quickest and easy way to kind of ingest that language of the query. Another kind of quick tip for queries that I find helps kind of boil it down to its essence is the hook, the book, and the cook. The hook is often an opening line or first paragraph that's going to grab the agent's attention, like a one-liner to open it up. Then the book is the body of your query. It's about the book. And finally, the cook is you, because there's always a short bio paragraph in there. Don't worry, I'm going to talk more about the bio paragraph because I know that strikes fear into the heart of many of us. So the number one question that your query has to answer generally and for an agent is, why should I care? The number one mistake I see so many writers make in their query, very often because they're not writing character-driven queries that are outlining that character, their want, their conflict, and the stakes, is there's no reason to care about what is going on. You can't just dump conflict on me, and certainly not stakes if they're overblown stakes or unclear stakes, unless you've basically given me enough of a nugget to make me care. And again, that is going to be through clearly establishing a character. You want to give some specific details of setup of who this character is, enough to give them their own unique flavor, but not so much that you're writing a monologue about this character or info dumping on the page. It's one kind of clear and specific mission statement about who this character is that gives the agent something to chew on, something to hold on to. And then you're carrying it through into paragraphs that lay out more about the setup of your book, and then layer in some conflict and leave on some stakes. You want to intrigue the agent enough to leave them with a core question. one question, guys. If you leave them with too many questions, you've confused them. And instead of wondering, ooh, I wonder blank blank, and then make them want to read the book, you make them go, I think this query is kind of a mess. I have so many questions and not in a good way. You want to always remember that your query letter is marketing copy. This is why so many writers struggle with them, and I give you full permission to struggle with queries. They do not come naturally to most fiction writers. I happen to love queries, but I have a background in marketing. I really enjoy creating compelling marketing copy. This, by the way, is why you should never feel ashamed of getting help on your query. Forget shame. It's almost a requirement. You should always get help on your query. And there's tons of communities and resources where you can get free help, because all you need to do is find the right person, usually a fellow author, who has a knack for query writing style. What is query writing style in marketing copy? First of all, in marketing copy, short and sweet. You do not want long, meandering sentences, certainly not that info dumping that I talked about. You also don't want to be too repetitive with your sentence structure, or like, oh, don't do that thing that you think is intriguing where you just ask a million questions. No, if you can maybe have one rhetorical question in your query, but honestly, it's safer to have none. Rhetorical questions are not a good MO in queries. Agents tend to actually hate rhetorical questions in queries to that end. I also think you should be very considerate of paragraph breaks. In marketing copy, it is short and sweet. Short and sweet isn't always bad. It's about moving the I over the copy. A huge mistake I often see writers make is it's like 3 dense paragraphs. No, that opening line really should be pithy and short, 1 sentence or 2 sentences max, then a short and sweet setup paragraph with a tiny hint of conflict, a short and sweet escalating conflict paragraph, and a final conflict stakes paragraph. So you can have up to 4-5 paragraphs max if none of them are very long. It's about making sure that the agent is moving through the copy pretty quickly and their eye and attention are able to grab on the key, most important things in your book. Long sentences, tons of details detract from that. So I basically just gone over my favorite query format, which is pithy opening liner, setup paragraph, escalating conflicts paragraph, and then a final conflicts paragraph that ends with the big stakes. You want to leave them with like a drop in their stomach. That is the thing that pushes them to want to read. The paragraph immediately following that is going to be your book info paragraph. That's where you say, title of book is a YA fantasy novel complete at X words, like you put in the word count. It will appeal to fans of X and Y. That can be 2 books. It could sometimes be another media property. It could be different authors. Or you say X meets Y. Book will appeal to fans of then book comps. Generally, when you have comps, which are comparison titles, you do want to stick with books. You want to make sure that they've come out fairly recently. I say max 5 years, and you want to avoid, like the plague, big outlier bestsellers. You shouldn't be comping Harry Potter or The Hunger Games, Twilight. Honestly, even things like Red Queen or Shadow and Bone are going to be Sarah J. Maas is another one, too big, too popular to be meaningful comps for an agent. You're basically telling them with comps where this book would sit on the shelf. It gives them an idea of how to pitch it. It also gives them an idea that you understand your book and you understand the market. I do personally like the one where you say it will appeal to fans of different authors if you can't find specific titles that fit, because that gives them more a sense of tone, voice, and sometimes also fandom. Next, a thing you might want to consider, which can mess with the query format I've mentioned, that is my favorite, and that is agent personalization. So agent personalization is completely optional. This is when you specifically address at the beginning of your query the agent that you are querying with specific information about why you were choosing to query this agent. Now, always do your research. Some agents so vastly prefer personalization that they will penalize you if you don't use it, but I say that telling you not to panic, because those agents who are a little bit egotistical are in the minority. Most agents are not going to force you to personalize your query or hold it against you if you don't. And in fact, there are some major agents who I really love who hate personalization because so often it comes across as trite and fake. I say only use personalization if it's really, really necessary. To give you an idea of when it would be more necessary, for example, if you're responding to someone's manuscript wish list, if they requested your book in something like DV Pit, or if you have a legit specific personal reason to be querying them. Let's say you are legitimately a mega fan of one of their lead clients. Depends on how you say it though, because it can come across as sucking up either way. My favorite example is when I was querying, I did query two agents who run one of my favorite podcasts. And so in the beginning, I was and am a dedicated listener of that podcast. So I was able to speak to their podcast in my personalization and, I had tweeted at them before, so it's possible they would kind of recognize me. But honestly, I almost never personalized because I find it too stressful. So you don't have to personalize. I mention this because when you do personalize, it's going to come at the very beginning of your query before you go into the details about the book. And when you do this, you have to put some of that book info paragraph information in your personalization paragraph, which is now your first paragraph. Because you're going to say, dear agent, I am sending you title of book, comma, a YA fantasy complete at X words, because then you personalize. So then you're still going to do a book information paragraph later, but that's normally when you'll do the comp. So you end up splitting your book info paragraph into two sections in the query when you personalize. I know this is complicated, I'm sorry. When in doubt, just do a regular query, to be honest. It honestly doesn't matter if you personalize 95% of the time, and I mostly didn't. Okay, let's talk about your bio paragraph. This is the anxiety-inducing one. You do have to have a very short paragraph about who you are as the author. You are the cook in the Hook Book and Cook scenario. The good news is you don't need to say a ton, and honestly, less is more. As I mentioned, a huge mistake I see writers make in queries is they go on and on and on and on and on and on about themselves. It's especially bad when they start the query about themselves, and really any long paragraphs about why you wrote a book, like, I want to teach children, blah, 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 blah. Oh gosh, no, agents hate that. It's really pretentious and not good. Short and sweet, guys. You can say, I graduated from X university with a degree in English literature. I work in X industry. When I'm not writing, I spend time with my cats and I knit. I don't know. It's a short but sweet bio. Give them a little flavor about who you are. And you don't even have to say educational credentials. Nice side note, you don't need a degree to get a book deal. But if you have them in a writing related field, you can put it there. Your job doesn't matter if it doesn't relate to writing. It maybe just tells them a little about you. You can say, I live in sunny Los Angeles and I work in television marketing, whatever it is, that's me. Just a tiny, tiny bit. Then if you do have relevant credentials to writing, you definitely want to include them. That could be that you've participated in a mentorship, or you are a mod on a forum, you volunteered for events that are related to the book community. It could be if you have publications, obviously you're going to include them there. But honestly, if you don't have a ton, don't worry, you can just have a sentence or two. Very light details about yourself. And also, no need to tell them that this is your first novel. They're going to assume it is. So you do not need to say that. Then lastly, you're just going to close out your query by saying, please find below X number of pages per your submission guideline, if they allow pages. And you don't need to say that you are happy to send their manuscript should they want to read it. Again, that is going to be assumed, and just do a nice little salutation, and then make sure you have your contact details underneath the signature. This is where you can pop any relevant social media if you want them to check you out. Put your email, put your phone number, and that's it. This is also the spot where you would mention if you're writing under a pen name, so I signed mine, sincerely, my real name, parentheses, writing as Alexa Donne. So let's talk about general querying etiquette and some rules. My number one tip for queries, other than learn the format of queries and write a good, properly formatted, concise query, is always follow the guidelines. You should be researching the agents that you want to query. First of all, make sure they actually rep your genre, your category. That is vital because you're just going to be an auto reject otherwise. And follow their guidelines. Whatever they ask for, that is what you send to them. Don't send them more pages than they ask for. If they don't ask for an attachment, I mean, general rule of thumb, never send attachments. It's super rare that an agent allows you to send attachments, so you should copy and paste everything into the body of your email, or if they have a query form, you use the query form. If they ask for a synopsis, you write a synopsis. Always pay attention to the guidelines, because I gotta tell you, people who follow proper query format and follow the guidelines are above and beyond more than 50% of people who query. You automatically go into the upper echelon of people who write concise queries and follow directions, and you're going to get more considered attention from the agent just by passing that very low bar that amazingly a lot of people don't pass. I have to tell you, even in author-mentor match, where essentially we have people query us, people don't follow the very simple guidelines that I set forth on the website. I ask for so little. Just follow the subject line rules and don't send an attachment if I tell you not to. You'd think, I have so many feelings. I have glimpsed what agents have to deal with, and I can only imagine, but seriously, follow the directions and you are already in a really good spot. In terms of etiquette and professionalism, my next tip is not to mass query, shotgun query. Both never ever query where you do a CC or a BCC of hundreds of agents. They hate that, they know, and specifically if you CC them, well, they're all gonna talk. It's just awkward. Don't do it. You don't have to specifically personalize every single query you send, like, so-and-so, I'm querying you because XYZ, but you are going to address each query individually to an individual agent and send an individual email to each agent. I also generally advise that you query in batches. This kind of gets more into like querying tips, and I'll do a whole other video on my favorite querying method, just so you know my kind of magic formula for how to query, but generally, spoiler, query in small batches because this enables you to test your query and test your pages that you are sending. You want to get a sense of whether or not your query package is working before you query more agents. Generally, you get one shot with an agent and you don't get to query them again if they reject you. There are some cases where you could do a serious revision and possibly query again, but you should always assume you get one shot with an agent, so don't blow your shot. Another pro tip is to spell the agent's name right. I know, again, it's a low bar, and no one's gonna punish you or penalize you if you don't, but it is nice if you do so that then you don't go into the relationship immediately with, oh, they spelled my name wrong. Oh, or they used the wrong name. Seriously, if you're doing the copy pasta on your queries, always make sure you double check the agent's name at the top. This next one's also gonna seem like duh, but you'd be amazed. Don't insult the agent in your query letter. I mean, again, this kind of goes to if you do the bare minimum, you're already doing better than so many people. You'd think it would be obvious, but people do insult agents and queries that they send to them. Even just by saying all YA is like stupid and this YA book is going to change the industry, you are insulting an entire category that someone represents. I've also heard of bonkers cases where people insult the lead clients of the agents, like indicate that their books are like commercial garbage. It's just never a good idea to start off on an insult. So yeah. As I already mentioned, don't tell the agent what to think. This doesn't seem quite as obvious, but don't tell them this is going to be a bestseller. Generally, no grandiose statements. Don't tell them this is the book that children need. Don't tell them at length, I wrote this book because my father died and I knew in my soul I had to write a book on grief for all the children. I'm making up examples. You don't want TLDR in your query. TMI, too much information, nor grandiose megalomaniacal statements about how they're an idiot if they pass up this opportunity to work with your sure to be best-selling book. Avoid all of that. That's like two different sides of the same problem. One, you're just maybe being a little bit clueless, and the other, I don't know, you're set on world domination? I don't know. Next is the same rule for when you apply to college or jobs. You want to make sure you have a professional email address. So it shouldn't be like sexybud29@gmail.com or 420allday@yahoo.com or whatever it is. It's usually best, honestly, to have it be your name. She says having an email address that is not her name. But I mean, as long as it is like a straightforward, pretty professional thing that's not going to make them kind of tilt their head and go, okay, you're good. And lastly, in terms of etiquette, 2 things to leave you with. Do not respond to rejections. Even if you get a really detailed, personalized rejection from an agent on a full, for example, you could maybe say thank you, but honestly, the safer thing is never to respond to a rejection because agents don't need you to respond. They don't expect you to respond. And particularly, don't respond and be angry and yell at them and threaten them. My last tip is don't threaten the agent. That goes hand in hand with don't insult the agent, but don't threaten the agent. Rejection is a natural part of this whole process, and it's also deeply, deeply subjective. Agents are looking for fit. They're looking to fall in love with a book, and not everyone can love every book. I mean, I think we, as readers and writers, can agree to that. You can't make someone love you. It's also a really, really tough business, so you're just inevitably going to face rejection until you don't. So just generally be professional. Don't respond to rejections, don't threaten anyone. Deal with your feelings privately and personally. And this isn't specific to in the query box, but relates to queries. Don't yell at them on Twitter either. I've seen that too. Yeah. So that is my overview on how to write a great query, all of my favorite tips and tricks and formats and whatnot to crack the query code for you, plus those top etiquette and professionalism tips. Let me know down below in the comments any questions you have about writing a great query, and give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and I will make more videos about the nuts and bolts of traditional publishing and how to get your foot in the door. I have some really handy query guides, which I will link to down below, as well as other resources on the channel that I have made around querying and agents. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. I post new videos 2 to 3 times a week. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and happy writing.